Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. I'm Adam Russell.
And I am Mike Forster. We're a bipod tonight.
It's a duo cast.
It's a duo cast when people are preparing to go on the road. When they are on the road, you just got back from the road.
When the road is on them.
And I am just here on this long road myself.
Just puffing that Canadian tree smoke.
It is very smoky here. I think when you, as Jason is listening in our producer mode, you do understand, we've, wildfires have kind of been a thing for us the past couple of years because, climate change is real and there's many factors that are contributing to that. But yeah, it's been smoky up here in the great north. I'm excited. How was Alaska? Speaking of the great north,
the show was sick. It was really, really good. I didn't know what to expect because the past two times we've been there, wildly different. First time we played two shows, an over 18 and an under 18. The under 18 felt like a high school mixer. It was bizarre. It was like a hip hop promoter.
nice.
Played in the weirdest venues ever. Second one was more like a regular show. This one was an outdoor festival, like kind of down a street or down an alleyway.
Yeah.
In kind of the downtown area, which we figured, that's cool. And then I saw the forecast, and then we got there. It was 48 degrees when we went on stage. I've never done that. None of us like. I had hand warmers in my back pockets.
Sure.
Long sleeve shirt with a flannel over it, dude.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Being in that, like, between those buildings, it was like a wind tunnel. Everybody down in the crowd all packed together. A bunch of Alaskans that are used to it. They were cool.
And this was in Anchorage.
Dying. Anchorage, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Anchorage. I mean, I think like from the perspective of at least the weather we're having, right? This is men talking about weather here. This is Thank the Maker.
Middle-aged dudes talking about weather.
Right, 100%. No, it's been cold. We're struggling to get I was just in Space Dive a couple of weeks ago and we were like, I actually love wearing jackets. It's very Star Warsy. We don't have to dress down. So we felt great. But it's been up in the north part. Summer has not officially hit yet. So I'm glad that you survived. And the show was great. That's awesome. Nick is currently gearing up for the second leg of the Bayside tour, which is fun. That's why he's not here tonight, but he assured us he'll be here next week. And Ryan Key kind of crushing it. I saw your bandmates, Story of the Year, making a cameo in the new Yellow Card video. Where were you?
Jill and I stopped by earlier, said hi to everyone, saw the whole vibe, said hi to Austin.
Sure.
It was good to see him.
Yeah.
And then we went on living our lives.
You don't want to sit, you got to sit in the makeup. You weren't ready for costume. You're like, guys, I can't, not today.
Yeah, we hung out with Ryan and his wife the night before, had dinner, and, the director is a friend of ours in St. Louis. I know the pace of those video shoots. When we got there, I was like, we're not going to do this shit for 4 more hours, so
sure,
we're going to go ahead and bail.
It's a great video. They got the actual actor from Rad. It is cameo galore. Story of the Year, of course. You can't film something in St. Louis without calling you guys. So I think huge shout out to the excitement that Ryan is going through right now. And they announced a huge tour with The Day to Remember.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure to get Ryan on the show as soon as he's able. But I know that they're definitely gearing up for all of those things because doing this again with a youth. The little youth is a little bit harder second time around. So we got some Star Wars news. We got some Star Wars to talk about after a long what would we call this? Like almost like we're still recovering from the May the 4th drop, which was way too much content all over Celebration.
Yeah, it's like a hangover. If a hangover could be good. Emotionally fulfilling,
sure.
Yet emotionally exhausting.
Yeah.
That's what we're feeling right now.
Yeah.
Still catching up. We've got next week. I guess we should probably do Light and Magic season 2.
Yep, which is short, right?
Speaking
we discovered that it was short, and it's hard because we watched all this stuff. Like I feel like I watched these shorts 2-3 weeks ago, right? Yeah. And then to rewatch them to talk about them tonight. Yeah, we've got questions.
I've got a lot of questions.
Should we get into it?
We should get into it. We're going to talk about Tales of the Underworld tonight, and since, like you said, it's been a full month, and a lot of people have watched it. We've watched it a couple times now.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to do a traditional breakdown like we tend to do when things get released. We won't really go through Stolen Plans in that way. We want to talk about this in broader brushstrokes and talk about these Tales series and what they mean for Star Wars, where they fit, who they're for, like the thumbnail suggests. And I think that'll be a more fun conversation than just doing, too little, too late breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the bonus segment for patrons at the end of the show, after we shut it off for everybody else, we will get into the rumor mill is again talking about Kathleen Kennedy and who's going to succeed her from Lucasfilm. If that's happening, who knows?
Right.
It's interesting stuff that is worth talking about. So we're going to do that for the patrons. Patreon.com/thankthemakerpod if you want to hear and see that. But for right now, what do you say we get into? Let's do a loose little intro and get into the overview of this. Mike, you want to tell us, who the usual suspects are that put this thing together, the reprised roles and so on and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Quickly?
So Tales of the Underworld, which is the third continuation in Tales, because we've had Tales of the Jedi, we've had Tales of the Empire, and then we've also now had Tales of the Underworld, which does open up some opportunities to where we could go in the future, right? They're small little episodes, they're really great, about 14, 12 to 15 minutes a piece. And they're quick, but they're all connected within a certain arc. So I thought that was interesting how they continue to do that. And they fill in some gaps that either we were curious about or we were just not expecting at all. So I think it was interesting. Debuted on Disney Plus on May 4th, 2025. Directed by Saul Ruiz, who we've seen in Star Wars before. It's Stuart Lee and Nathan Villanueva. And written by Matt Minchovitz, which is all these names are familiar within Star
Yeah,
Wars. So
this is the
this is the
dream
crew.
team of animation that's been around through all this Bad Batch, everything.
Yeah. And then, of course, the story by Dave Filoni. So this is directed in terms of the ideas are coming straight from the chief creative officer, Dave Filoni himself, and starring our normal voice actors that we've come to know. We've got Nika Futterman, who our local con up here in Escanaba, she was actually there the day before this premiered, which was amazing. So I got to talk with her a little bit, invited her on the show, would love to have her on. Reprising her role as Asajj Ventress. Corey Burton, of course, as Cad Bane. We have Lane Factor as Estrada, who has been who's done work in The Fablemans and Reservoir Dogs, and AJ Locasio, which I think most probably widely known at this point is Gambit in X-Men 97. And he's also done Han Solo as the Lego version of Han.
Nice.
In probably most of the projects that we would know. And then we have Eric Lopez as Nero, who is the Bumblebee Man in The Simpsons, which is great. And Philip Anthony Rodriguez as Laszlo, which is the fifth brother in Rebels. So it's really great to see them back, of course. And then, of course, guest voices, which we know. We have D. Bradley Baker, Vanessa Marshall, Matthew Wood, Steve Bloom. So it's really they're getting the band back together. We have a lot of familiar names in here doing some roles that you probably were not aware of, but regardless, this was a really cool little look at some stories that I don't know if we were, again, necessarily looking for, and some that we definitely needed some explanation, and I think everyone knows who we're talking about.
Yeah, it is stuff that it's easy to say, like, did we need this, for all of the tales? But I'm starting to think, well, we'll get into this later, exactly who this is for and why it's getting made. But
Sure.
I think the opening of the Ventress arc was something that we really did need, because Ventress came back in the Bad Batch, and everyone was like, wait a minute, she's dead. What the hell?
Right.
Because Dark Disciple, the book,
Right.
tells the story of her with Quinlan Voss. That ended with the opening scene of this, where she's dead, he's carrying her dead body.
Right.
So much needed. But it's interesting how like all of the tales kind of what do you call them? Almost like yin yang kind
Yeah,
of twofers that they give us each time.
sure.
You've got the dark and the light,
Hmm.
and opposing directions, opposing kind of arcs,
Right.
one up, one down kind of thing, and we get that here. But it's not as, because this is the underworld thing, and they're like, these are characters that have been through that dark part, that dark underbelly of the galaxy in completely different on completely different lanes, you know? Like Asajj being a force user and being a Sith apprentice and all this kind of stuff, Cad Bane just being a bounty hunter, just being kind of like a scoundrel who's a poor kid. They're the they're experiencing those dark lives and those dark character arcs almost like on different planes of existence. Like
Right.
literally on different planes of existence. So it's interesting in that sense. Before we continue, anyone watching on Instagram, come find us on YouTube, youtube.com/@thankthemakerpod. Cutting you guys off. Love you. Bye. Um, so we should mention that we saw the first episode of the Ventress arc at Celebration.
Lots of gasps.
Lots of gasps. I mean, I
Lots of
think that
gasps.
opening scene on Dathomir
Yeah.
was,
Very moving.
I mean, like the peak of the whole of all 6 episodes. Seeing Obi-Wan again, it's just like, I don't know, how do you not get completely pumped? We all watched it with our mouths wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Going,
animation,
oh.
as much as we were kind of like, we've really started to see in Tales as kind of the show in contrast to also hearing more about Maul and
Mm-hmm.
getting Maul Shadow Lord, which is intentionally done in a different animation style, a little bit lower frame rate, kind of has more of that
It's more painterly.
modern. It's more painter. It's kind of got that like Ninja Turtles Into the
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Verse kind of look. It's
Yep.
intentionally done different, but this was classic where I think Star Wars animation has left off. Just looked gorgeous. I mean, I remember us kind of watching the smoke from the pools, from the pods, Dathomir
Mm-hmm.
just looking exactly how you imagined. I'm sure they wanted it to look in the early episodes of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things that, of course, it answers the story that I think everyone was asking in the Bad Batch. And two, like for our patrons already having a great discussion. There's a great discussion happening over on YouTube. There's always that part of it where people, I can hear the gripes. I can hear the gripes already of just going like, here's Filoni keeping his favorite characters alive. Here's Filoni digging further into, more of, here's Filoni digging into more of his characters that he knows best because he was a part of creating them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get, of course, the people who are just frustrated that a very popular novel is being toyed with, being messed with, right? Which I understand. And then there's also, of course, people saying this is once again, which I think Amaranth or someone in the YouTube comments, and or someone looks like Father Karras over here saying, um, just that it's the consequences thing, right? We brought Barasafi back. She has a redemption story. It's like this kind of continuous thing with Star Wars where we're continuously leaving a lot of doors open, and so I think what's interesting about it from that standpoint is we're accessing parts of Kenobi again, and it opens up again every time you see these characters in animation. It keeps opening them up for live adaptation, which we've seen Cad Bane in this kind of ominous way that we left him in true Star Wars fashion. Is Cad Bane still alive? What happened after Book of Boba Fett? So I understand where all of the conversations around the decisions to focus specifically on these two characters. Cad Bane has been a wildly popular character straight out of the Filoni verse. And it's again getting and toying with that idea of is mystery cooler than pulling back the curtain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams would tell us that the mystery box is always better than whatever you could reveal from it.
That's a story for another time.
That's human psychology. It's hard to argue with that. What I what I really did love about these upon rewatch and really trying to ponder on it and marinate on it, that I found to like elevate my experience once I did, because aside from the opening episode, overall it was kind of like cool, all right, yeah, that's pretty cool. It didn't blow our minds except for that opener. It's all good shit though. Loved it. But upon review, I like how these two, it being again tales of the underworld, like the underbelly of the galaxy, the places you don't want to be, the experiences you don't want to have, kind of is what these stories are about. I like that it really showed a spotlight on two people who are products of generational violence
Hmm.
and how their paths diverged pretty significantly in the end. Because, we've seen we've seen the end of Cad Bane. Even if he's not dead, he's old as hell in the Book of Boba Fett.
Sure.
He's not changing unless on his deathbed, like Vader, he changes his mind, right? But Asajj, she as a young Padawan ended up going the dark path. Has this
The dark version of Ahsoka in some ways.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, the violence of the generations of dark side users passing that down to these young vulnerable people made her the Sith apprentice, this assassin who was eventually then betrayed. But ultimately she ends up with this younger Jedi, and you know, prior to that, via Quinlan Voss, breaks away from that, ends that cycle of violence and rides off in the sunset with this Jedi seemingly off to a brighter future. Whereas Cad Bane starts a poor kid, taken in by, I had this like kind of Goodfellas vibe when I was
Hmm.
watching it, brought in by somebody who he looks up to as a hero, but is not a good guy and essentially just becomes the grown up version of him. He takes the hat. I mean, it's very on the nose in that way.
Sure.
And
Ever since I can remember, I always
yeah,
wanted to be a gangster.
exactly. And then, the most tragic thing about the story is in the end, he kills his best friend who he didn't realize was raising his son.
Yeah.
Like
It.
that moment right there says clear as day, all caps, bold. This dude will not get a redemption. It's done. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the nail in the coffin.
Right. Right. Well, so you
Sealed his
think.
fate.
So you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vader did some terrible things. But I think to this point, I think there is something about, when we think about Star Wars always being the story of redemption, or being a story about rewriting your past or not letting your past define you, which is a theme that we see in both, that goes both ways. We don't get to explore it much with the dark side because I think for a lot of people, they understand and probably know someone who wasn't able to get over it, right? And then we know the great story of what it is like for someone who's able to turn that away. I think for a lot of people, you're looking at, of course, you have the Duros. We have some very loose social settings at play here. You have these are street kids. Don't
Mm-hmm.
touch them. Don't talk to them. The kids are kind of looking at even other people on their planet, of wherever this planet was, that that are kind of say like, don't, we don't want to, they might look like you, but they're not you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have some classism at work, and then you also have at the same time, like, for a lot of places, military recruiting, police departments, all of that, is a combination of some people saying, I want to choose law enforcement. And for the military, unfortunately, has generally been available for people who felt like this is the clearest choice for me to go try to be a successful person among society.
Why do they always send the poor? Why do they always send the poor? Why?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely social cues at play, but I think for someone like Cad Bane, you get that idea of like, trust in a mentor, starting to question your mentor's motives. And then also um, for a lot of people, the idea that your parents, people and trust, end up just being people too. They're vulnerable. They feel things. You know what I mean? And so I think for someone who's like, when you see the idea that Anakin, Senator Palpatine, is someone that he trusts, someone that he says, I want to hear more about what it is that you have to offer. What can you do? How can you take my pain and do something with it? If I trust you and I'm vulnerable with you. And Cad Bane is almost like, this is just a little micro look at that.
Yeah. It's, again, it's animation, and it's these bite-sized things that we get dumped all at once that we just kind of binge through, and it's easy to miss all of these really poignant allegorical kind of seeds that Filoni and the team have been dropping. So I would encourage anyone who only kind of watched this once, or maybe hasn't finished it or whatever, isn't that stoked, watch it again. Think about it in the larger context and enjoy it. All of that said, let's ask the question that the thumbnail for this posed. Who is the show made for? Who are all of these tales really made for? Because when you think about how they're released, you think about the timing of it, the fact that they're kind of dumped all at once, the length, can answer that a bit, but they are to the point at the beginning, not fully necessary stories to tell that could just kind of be left in the mystery box. And they don't get much push. It's Disney Plus, so it's all right there in front of our faces to see, but the way they're dropped on, the past two on May the 4th, maybe that's this new May the 4th tradition. Filoni wants to drop things. Then you have to also wonder, with such a drought coming up for content, why not wait and release it on June 4th today? Why didn't we get it now? Why wouldn't you maybe do the first 3 one week, the next 3 the next week? Does it really come down to like the P&L breakdown of this? Even just the ad space on top of Disney Plus promoting their other properties, is that too much to spend? Does this need to be a word of mouth thing for Disney? Because animation is so much cheaper to create now, so they can just kind of throw it out there. Do you have any thoughts about this? I have a few written down, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, the thing that I think is interesting from this standpoint, I'm watching this real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, people in the chat. The Mall Shadow Lord trailer hasn't actually been released yet.
No.
Officially.
No, everything on YouTube is, shaky iPhone videos of Celebration.
Yeah. So there is something interesting about this when you think about it. Now, this is one of those things where, like, we understand that we are Star Wars apologists. Listen, you guys are out there accusing us of this. Yes. Okay. We love Star Wars. We love it. We love all the teams that work on Star Wars. But these are those moments where we do scratch our heads because, we look at it and go, why didn't we, we dropped Light and Magic. We dropped Tales of the Underworld, all of it right after Celebration, right through Andor, which I think Andor got moved up in the timeline. I understand that, to get it nominated for the Emmys and all this kind of stuff. There were lots of things happening that I understand. But now we are in the drought. So it does make you wonder when what the plan is for animation, because what's been a little inconsistent about these shows is we got a real strong development with Morgan Elsbeth, who we then saw meet her end at the hands of Ahsoka Tano.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also got Ahsoka's other partner at one point, Barisafi, who had a redemption arc that was then over too. So it's almost like we brought these two characters back that we already knew the end, but was that more to explain a backstory of a show that we actually saw back in 2021 or 2022, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like it's almost like these little fill in the blanks for people who I don't know if they were curious about it. But it seems like it was like stories that that Dave particularly still wants to tell. And that's where we've been scratching our heads, because like when we look at it, we think none of these are crucial stories. You're not necessarily gaining anything, because there's still a lot of people who haven't even watched Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And to my recollection, we never saw Barisafi. We last saw her as an adult, but we never saw Asajj dead on screen.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time that we saw her. So again, you have a whole audience that just assumes that Asajj, who is the cool bald lady with the tattoos,
Yeah.
where did she go? Right. And so in some ways, like, it's kind of establishing that. And again, they're hoping that everyone who loves Star Wars is like on Star Wars. They want to know all the stories, all of this, but like, I don't think that's where most of the audience is this into it in terms of Disney Plus subscribers. So it's almost kind of like it's almost like they're putting bait out there to have people maybe get curious enough to get into more Star Wars media.
That makes a lot of sense. These being little bite-sized things, but it is so weird. Like I see I see shorts and little what do you call them? Like on Paramount Plus, you have side treks,
Sure.
the little animated things from Lower Decks. There's on Apple TV Plus side quests for the Mythic Quest series, and I don't tend to watch those, even though I love both of those series. I love the Star Trek universe. I, as a deep cut nerd, still, with all the content out there, can't find time. That's bullshit. I have time. I just can't make myself make time to watch these little things that would, I know, make everything better. But then there's also in my mind, shit, where does this take place in the timeline? Can I watch this now, or do I need to watch the other stuff? Oh, I'm overwhelmed. I'll put the Edge of Tomorrow again, for the 50th time on, and just watch that as I go to sleep, or I'll watch YouTube. Somebody make it a damn baseball bat, you know. Um,
Louisville Slugger, I do get it.
yeah,
That's in Kentucky though.
yeah. How it's made reruns on YouTube,
Right.
but I, I just don't know. The only thing I can think of that makes sense at the top, the question, why does Lucasfilm keep giving us these? Because we love them. We love all this. And we're asking the question just out of like pure curiosity, and because we want to understand the marketing, we want people to enjoy Star Wars as much as we do. It has to just be the most cost-effective way to do a short story. And I'd be willing to bet that everybody on the team is down to do it for whatever budget they can get. In VFX houses, and which is, I don't know if the animation department and the vendors that they use for it falls under that same type of thing where,
Mhm.
a VFX house, for example, gives a bid. A few companies give bids for a movie. This is how much it's going to cost, period. Even if they come back with a crushing list of notes, you still do it for that amount of money.
Right.
Is it the same kind of thing? And they're all like, yeah, screw it. Let's make it. Like, these stories are cool. Yeah, Dave, let's go. And it's just cheap enough that they can crank them out, and they essentially become like comic books for the screen.
Sure. Well, there is a couple different ways that I think that these, because when you think about it, when you do the arcs that are broken up into 15-minute arcs, you're still getting a 45-minute story that
Hmm.
could be broken up over time. Like Barris's was her at the Imperial Academy, and then it was her many, many, many years later, right?
Hmm.
So it's like you have these times where like I do get confused as to how they land on certain characters, why they choose to either end or give us a backstory for a character that we already know the end of their, at the time, Morgan Elsbeth, we didn't know what happened to her. I believe Tales of the Empire came out last May the 4th, right?
Right.
And Ahsoka ended in 20. Did Ahsoka end in 2023 or
Um,
2024?
that's a good question. I was looking at all this earlier, and I can have an answer in a second if you just keep talking.
Okay. So, we knew how Morgan Elsbeth's story ended. Tales gave us a story of the Tales focused on where is Grand Admiral Thrawn, the story of how Caladan came to be. 2023. Thank you, Amaranth. Um, it was a story of how it came to be, despite us knowing already where her story ended. But they chose to go back to Mando season 2, and even previous before that, of establishing Thrawn as this great connector of Imperial universes. Which again, here we go. We understand a little bit more about the connection to Thrawn, maybe encouraging people to realize that there's a lot more of Thrawn's story than for people who wanted to watch Rebels. Um, but I think in some regards, my idea that I have for Star Wars animation is go back and find some of these amazing novels and give us 45 minutes of a visual animated version of the novel and acknowledge the writers for all of these amazing stories that clearly people like Dave Filoni clearly wants to respect what happened in Dark Disciple.
Yeah.
There are many, many, many stories of where people are, the EU is like the dumbest set of stories and really great stories
Yeah.
that people absolutely gloss over how dumb some of these stories were. But clearly, Dave is inspired by a lot of them. And so, in some ways, you almost wonder if we could benefit from a master and apprentice. We could benefit from Lost Stars. We could benefit from Alphabet Squadron.
Hmm.
We could benefit at this point. I don't know where Starfighter is going to go, but we could benefit from even the first X-Wing Rogue Squadron book.
Yeah.
We could benefit from seeing those as animated shorts because again, three 15-minute episodes is 45 minutes. Like I think people would be geeked to see that. I feel like we're about to go see it in the new Predator version. Have you seen those?
The
The Killers of or Killer of Killers or whatever it's called.
the new film that's coming out, the new Prey film.
So the director of Prey is directing three like animated
Oh,
short.
oh yes, I did see
Yeah,
this. Sick.
Killer of Killers or whatever it is. And it's a kid in World War II, a pilot in World War II. It's a feudal Japan, and then it's like a Viking, and there's like a predator in each of those.
And it's going just straight to a streamer,
It's
right?
going straight to Hulu. Yeah. So like it's called like Killer of Killers or whatever it's called. And so I think like there's a lot of people, and it's done in kind of the new mall Shadowlord. I think it comes out this week. Let's see, what does the chat say? Yeah, I
Oh, it
think it
comes out in
comes out
2
this
days.
Friday. Yeah. Um,
Sick.
so it's
Oh,
very
dude, I'm gonna watch that.
it's gonna be awesome. The trailers are amazing. And it allows for people to tell stories in a medium that people are comfortable seeing, because I do feel bad for a lot of great novels that will not be read by people who unfortunately don't want to read. But I
Yeah.
think if animated was to bring to life some of these novels with the grace and acceptance of the writers, Claudia Gray getting her time, you look at so many different novels that people really hold on to, would be awesome. would be great.
I fully agree. The question, though, because there is a financial question always, getting back to the theater, getting back to, the blockbuster status that Star Wars started with and deserves to return to. Some of those great old stories, I have to imagine they're pretty hesitant to just say, yeah, let's crank them out in animation,
Mhm.
because the way Star Wars is approaching canon, they're very respectful to your earlier point about what's been on paper, what's been in animation, in terms of like what they want to bring to live action, and not stepping on those stories too badly. Andor had a little bit of some reworking of canon, or
Mhm.
kind of, I don't want to say it was disrespected, but Tony Gilroy wasn't as concerned, and the quality of the show was so high that I think they were willing to bend the rules a little bit. But
Right.
generally speaking, Star Wars doesn't do that. So
Right.
if they just go, let's say they went back to the old Rogue Squadron video game and did a sick animated series,
Right.
then would Starfighter not be what it's going to be?
Right. Right. And we'd hope that the universe and story group is like keeping all of these. I'm sure they have like you and I talked about it, just being like, man, we could sit with story group for 3 days and feel like we
Yeah.
didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like asking, like, what have you guys thought about this? What about this? What about this?
Charlie Day with the bulletin board with
Yeah,
the
100%. Yeah,
strings. Yeah.
you gotta get right. But there is a part of me that goes like, just seeing the idea of where they're choosing to tell these stories, but then also looking at now that more information is out there and Tony Gilroy's being a little bit more cavalier about the things that he's saying, doesn't seem like he's as concerned about, offending Disney. His joke about Little Mermaid or whatever was being filmed at the lot across the street. Did you hear this like joke
No.
that he makes? Yeah, it's super funny. But he doesn't seem to be afraid to go, I have a story in mind that I wanted to tell. And then straight up hears from Disney, streaming is dead. Literally came from Disney themselves. And so when they're sitting here looking on their budget and going, we just said streaming is dead. After 5 years of streaming, Bob Iger is claiming that that streaming is dead. Tony Gilroy's over here going, well, I'm taking the streaming that you told me you were going to give me, and I'm making it the most expensive thing you've ever done. So
Yeah.
you're like, okay, that's pretty stones. And he just straight up erased a comic book about K2SO's origin, which again, we liked the way that it was in there. I understand that for comic book writers, like they're kind of used to this at this point.
Yeah.
But then also like if you go back and listen to our shows with Charles and Heather Antos, like how excited they were to see Black Chrysanthemum,
Yeah.
in live action. That's an amazing experience. So
Yeah.
I think in some ways I would love to see more development of established stories being brought. Like, I think there's so many great stories that need to be brought to a mass audience.
Hmm.
I think in some regards, now that Netflix has just kind of answered back by dropping the end of Stranger Things, um, I understand where they're coming from. That streaming could be dead until it's not, until you get a cultural phenomenon like what HBO is going back to Max because they want to remind people that shows on our channel are top tier.
Yeah.
HBO.
Yeah.
Netflix at this point is like, we don't really know why you're still subscribed. Here's Stranger Things. Everyone's like, buckle back up. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
I think for Disney, on their standpoint, they're sitting here going, we have stories to tell, and we're not totally sure if people want to go back to the movie theater 5 times, 6 times a year, which we would think it's not a problem for us if it says Star Wars in the title. But they did get smoked um, by the backlash of going, did Solo not perform well because it was too close to The Last Jedi. Now we're getting into, release dates as being a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so streaming in some ways, like we've gotten used to the model of going, we expect content. Um, we expect content every 3 months. And then at the same time, too, it's like, look at Marvel on that side. Like Marvel in the theater has actually been getting smoked.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts is well received and it didn't make a lot of money because people didn't want to go see it. And then,
Because everyone figures, well, I'll wait a couple months and I'll just watch it on Disney, which is exactly what I did. I
100%.
would have loved to go see it, but my wife wasn't concerned about seeing it. I didn't have enough time when I was out for shows and stuff. So it's like, okay, do I just go cruise there by myself one weekday?
Right.
Yeah, I'll do that. But
Right.
then I'm like, well, I should cut the grass today. And before I know it,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Before I know it, I'll just watch it on Disney Plus.
Right.
So I'm sure there's plenty of that going. And like the stuff we talk about all the time,
Mhm.
all the time. Movies and TV shows aren't just competing against other movies and TV shows anymore. They're competing against everything else on your phone, TikTok, Instagram, all of it.
True.
And streaming ultimately, like realistically, is severely underpriced.
Right.
We are all getting like the best deal ever with all of these streamers. They're so cheap. I
Right.
don't care what anyone says about, well, it's back up to $100 a month if you get them all like cable. It's not cable, dude. It's so much better content. It's so much more content. It's all on demand. We are spoiled.
Yeah.
So, with all of that, it is such a roll of the dice to either keep putting stuff out and hope that long term you can keep raising the price until the business model makes sense and advertisers start to help get back to a level where the P&L balances out, or you hold back and you only do stuff every few years and you hope that that one big blockbuster is big enough and it will pay you back. That's a big ass risk.
Right.
And it's not like the old music industry and the old movie industry where you could crank out hundreds of titles per year and 60% of them can flop and the 40% that don't make you all the money in the world.
Right. Right. Yeah.
We're just not there anymore.
Right. And so for instance, like Predators comes out on Friday. That's included with our Disney subscription.
Yeah.
So I don't have to pay extra for that. I'm just watching that, right? Went and saw, I'm going to go see Lilo and Stitch with my daughter this weekend. In July, I'm going to see Jurassic Park, Superman, and Fantastic Four. Yeah. Right there. If I was to bring my child, some people have more kids, they want to bring them with their family. You're spending in just that 3 weeks alone in July. If you like all of these millennial based properties, you are going to spend $320 at the movie theater. You know what I mean? And that is like, that's what, 2 years of streaming. So like when you think about it from that standpoint, it really is like, it really is a crazy, when we're looking at it from a standpoint of going, what is the value of this, right? It does, I can understand why the marketing side of release dates seems important, because it equally is like you're dancing with the devil here. Because if they were to go, hey, we still want you to subscribe to Disney Plus, we're going to drop an animated show about Cad Bane and Asajj Ventress. I'm like, I'm in. JK, it's Tails, and it's only an hour and a half worth of footage. Now the internet's mad, right? Oh, we got this, here we're going to do Light and Magic. Oh, sounds good. I loved it. Season 1 is 8 episodes. Incredible, right? It's only 3 episodes. Now I'm upset again. Oh, no, you know what I mean? Versus Andor should have been what, 12 weeks of us glued to our TVs. But again, I'm not saying that Disney, there isn't a lesson here for Disney's marketing of Star Wars to be learned. I'm definitely not saying that, because there's a lot of things where I scratch my head at, and that's not to say that's not me being negative about it, because as with many things, these are huge decisions that I'm sure got made for some level of reason. They're not dumb people. They're not dumb people. They're is one of the
a lot of extremely complex equations with mostly unsolvable variables in the most important pieces of those equations.
Right, right. Well, and then too, it's like, we're fighting a lot of issues right now where if you've been paying attention to what's happening in California, Vegas is doing their best to become the new Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
because the cost of living has gotten so ridiculous in California that people are like, it just doesn't financially make sense for us to make movies here anymore, which blows your mind. And so Atlanta has picked up a lot of that. Vancouver has picked up a lot of that. Now they're trying to make Vegas pick up and be the desert landscape and the sound sets, and they can build stuff in the desert where it's cheap. Okay, sounds good, right? Mandalorian and Grogu filmed was like one of the probably the last largest budget to be filmed in California, which blows my mind in that regard. And so there's a lot of people that's affecting. Then you come into something like not just with Mando and Grogu, but then you have things like trying to figure out how we're going to like Nintendo Switch is coming out tomorrow. Did you know that, Adam?
Yeah, it was on the damn news.
Okay, so the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out tomorrow. At the time that you're going to listen to this podcast, it comes out today. IGN, which is the largest probably website that reviews video games for decades at this
Mm-hmm.
point, doesn't have one to review.
Yeah.
Stuff's happening, right? They're like, we don't know how much it's going to cost. We know how much it's going to cost. We don't know how much is going to be available. We don't know how many units, the pre-orders, everything. Like, we don't want to do scalpers, blah, blah, blah. It just kind of sounds like we don't know how much it's going to cost because they probably think with our very stable genius government that we have right now that they weren't anticipating 58% tariffs. They're going to get smoked in bringing these hard. So how do you prepare for this?
All of this also in the wake of a pandemic that no one saw coming, that we still haven't recovered from. So
Correct. And
unprecedented times, and people are just as spoiled and bratty as ever.
Right. So when it comes back to saying what is the purpose of the Tales of series? What is the purpose of animation? Are we going to, where is our curiosity in this? Is Maul going to be released the same way that Bad Batch was every week there's a new 30-minute episode?
Yeah.
Is it going to drop all at once? Like, we don't really know any of it because it's coming out next year, which is going to be after Mando and Grogu. So what else is there besides, is Star Wars just going to turn into a property where we get comic books and we get stories occasionally, and then we have to go see Star Wars? Like, we get one animated thing once a year and we go see a movie once a year. Is that what it's going to turn back into?
I don't think anyone will settle for that, and I think all the studios know that. Every studio is in the same position to some degree. They know they can't get away with it.
The crate dragon is out of the cave, baby.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get it back in there? And I don't think anyone has any idea of how to solve something and be able to do it correctly, because I think for a lot of people who have been largely disappointed, at least in my circle, there's too many streaming services. We are fully back to cable in regards of, I can't watch, someone who enjoys watching football on the weekend and not just all football. I'm saying my one team that after is the worst team in sports is finally started to get good again. It's incredibly difficult for me to watch football in my weird market where I'm closer to Wisconsin than I am to downstate Michigan. So I've got to pay for a service to watch it, right? You want to watch this, you got to pay for a service. You want to watch this, you can get half the shows on I get half the shows on Hulu, but I can't get the rest of it. I feel like I've watched every show from the Paramount network on a plane because Delta has access to them, and I don't watch it after, right? So I think for a lot of people, we're sitting here going, what is the future of this? And I think are the Tales of series simply little experiments of saying, what are we putting out there into the universe, or is it leading to something bigger that Dave is trying to hint at in his big grand story of the end of the Mandoverse, the end of the Filoni-verse. We have more rumors to talk about. Let's talk about them in the after show. I mean, these are curious times.
Well, to drop one final appetizer for the bonus segment for patrons, I feel like Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck, they put their heads together about what they want to release in animation. You know, Kathy Kennedy and Disney gives them the green light, and they say, "Let's do it. I don't give a shit. Let's do it. Let's do it. You guys are saying yes, we're doing it." You know, like I think at this point, anyone who can get their shit greenlit is doing it. Like in anything, TV, movies, animation, comic books, anything.
Right.
If your stories are getting greenlit, you're making the shit.
Right.
Because that's all any of these people want to do. That's all we as creators want to do is make the thing that we're excited about. So if the green light's there, they're doing it. If they say, well, we can only do it in this capacity, you say, okay, well, we'll make that work.
Right.
So here we are. All right. Let's wrap up, and we'll do the bonus segment for patrons about the rumored news. We have Mosh Eisley tickets on sale. That is July 25th in San Diego. MoshEisley.com for that. And nothing else to promote, right?
Well,
I mean, go see Nick on tour. Go buy tickets to Ryan's tour.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Adam? Tell us what you're up to.
We finished tracking all the instruments vocal. We're done tracking everything for our album. So we're in the mix phase now. We're patiently waiting on that, trying to decide on an album title, trying to decide on an artwork direction, which you and I should talk about.
Mm-hmm.
That's, of course, dependent on the title and vice versa. So
right. Mm-hmm.
We're kind of in a holding pattern until things happen. I have shows. I have one show in July. I have some stuff in August, Brazil in August. So it's a bit of a drought in Story of the Yearland as well.
With Yellow Card.
Yeah.
Come to Brazil.
Come to Brazil.
And you're like, okay.
I said yes.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, we're in.
Here we come.
Yeah, so I think San Diego is going to be really fun. We can't talk about the thing that's also fun about San Diego yet. Next week though, probably, which is exciting. One day. And then from there we also have we're working on some other things behind the scenes, but all in all, I'm feeling less and less worried about the drought. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it's pool season. Everybody get out, go to the pool.
Go get some sun, right?
Unless you're in Anchorage, then go lay in the cold, misty streets. I guess.
As soon as you got off the plane and you walked into the kind of the grand lobby of the Anchorage airport, you knew. You were like, I'm in Alaska.
Yeah, I saw a grizzly bear and a moose. Yes.
Right. It's all there. And then you see the mountain range in the background. You're like, yeah, okay. Pretty cool. So, let's do it.
All right. Patrons, thanks for being patrons. Everybody else, thanks for watching and listening. And until next week, may the force be with you. Thank the Maker is produced by Adam Russell and Jason Chiodo and edited by Jason Chiodo. If you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, and more. Our patrons literally make Thank the Maker possible.